Artificial intelligence. A term that evokes visions of machines that think, write, draw, and create. Systems that answer questions, recommend decisions, and even mimic human behavior. In the popular imagination, AI seems autonomous, intelligent, and self-sufficient. But the truth is far more human. Behind every AI system, behind every algorithm, every automated response, every predictive model, there are human beings. Thousands of them. Invisible. Unseen. Uncredited. These are the ghost workers of AI. The word ghost is not metaphorical. These workers are invisible in every sense. They labor tirelessly, often in distant corners of the world, performing the very tasks that make artificial intelligence appear intelligent. They label images. They transcribe speech. They tag videos. They correct mistakes. They moderate content. They provide the context, nuance, and judgment that machines cannot understand on their own. Without their work, AI systems would be nothing more than empty code, operating blindly in a digital vacuum. Yet, these ghost workers remain largely unknown. Their faces are not shown in reports. Their voices are not quoted in media stories. Their names are not recognized. And the work they do is often paid at levels that most of the world would consider shockingly low. Some earn only a few cents for hours of meticulous, demanding labor. They often juggle multiple platforms and projects, working long hours just to cover basic living expenses. While AI technology grows and thrives in offices and labs across the globe, these workers struggle to survive, to pay rent, to feed their families, to live. The work itself is demanding and repetitive. It is exhausting in ways that are both physical and mental. For example, labeling images might seem simple on the surface, but it requires acute attention to detail, speed, and accuracy. Mistakes are not tolerated because they can lead to errors in AI output, and every correction matters. One mislabeled image or misunderstood sentence could teach a machine the wrong concept, resulting in consequences that ripple far beyond the worker's screen. It is tedious work. Exhausting work. And it is work that is largely invisible to the world that benefits from it. Many of these ghost workers are asked to perform tasks that are psychologically taxing. They review disturbing content, violent videos, graphic images, offensive messages. They must make judgments in moments of moral or ethical uncertainty. And yet, they receive minimal support. Anxiety, depression, and trauma are common. Many workers are left to cope on their own, isolated and unseen. The very content they moderate, the very tasks they perform, shape the intelligence of machines that will one day interact with millions of people, but their own well-being is often neglected. AI is often portrayed as revolutionary, as autonomous, as magical. It can write essays, compose music, answer questions, translate languages. It can even mimic human creativity. But every action it takes, every decision it makes, is based on the labor of these ghost workers. They teach the machines what is appropriate, what is offensive, what is accurate, what is false. They are the invisible instructors, the silent teachers, guiding the learning of machines that will one day seem intelligent. Without them, AI could not function. And yet, the irony is stark. Those who benefit the most from AI, companies, consumers, developers, rarely acknowledge the human labor behind it. The ghost workers remain largely invisible, anonymous, and undervalued. They work in countries where wages are low, where opportunity is scarce. They work remotely, often from home, in internet cafes, in small, shared rooms, and sometimes in isolated rural areas. Their hours are long. Their tasks are endless. Their pay is minimal. And still, they continue, because there is work to be done, and survival depends on it. Despite their critical role, these workers have little security. They have few protections. They do not receive health care, benefits, or recognition. Mistakes can mean lost income. There is little room for career growth. And yet, the world of artificial intelligence grows richer, more powerful, and more influential every day. The contrast is jarring. AI thrives. Ghost workers struggle. It is also important to understand that AI is not simply taught facts or rules. It learns human judgment, bias, ethics, and nuance through these workers. Machines do not inherently understand context. They do not know right from wrong. They do not know subtleties in language, images, or human emotion. Every nuance, every concept, every pattern is shaped by the thousands of human hands that annotate, review, and correct the data that feeds AI. Their work is invisible, but it is indispensable. And there is another layer to this invisibility. Because AI appears autonomous, the public assumes that the intelligence is entirely artificial, that machines to think on their own. The idea that human labor, often poorly paid, is at the heart of every AI system challenges that perception. Ghost workers are essential to the illusion of autonomy, yet they are excluded from the story entirely. They are the hidden foundation of a technology that is transforming the world, but their contributions are largely erased from the narrative. We must also consider the human cost beyond the financial and psychological. The labor itself is monotonous and repetitive, which can take a toll on attention, focus, and overall well-being. Workers spend hour after hour tagging data, transcribing speech, and reviewing content. Their cognitive load is enormous. Every small decision they make, whether this image is labeled correctly, whether this phrase is flagged as harmful, carries weight. Yet, no one watches over them, no one credits them, no one acknowledges their expertise. And they continue, because the demand is unrelenting and the wages, however meager, are necessary for survival. AI systems, which appear to think, write, and create independently, are in fact deeply human at their core. Every recommendation, every piece of text generated, every image produced is shaped by the labor of ghost workers. They teach machines how to perceive the world, how to understand human behavior, and how to respond. In essence, they breathe life into technology that seems alive. And yet, the world rarely stops to consider them, to value them, or to even notice them. This is the first truth about artificial intelligence: it is human-powered. Behind every machine that thinks, there is a human who taught it how. Behind every algorithm, there is a worker who corrected, labeled, and refined it. Behind every prediction, there is labor, unseen and underpaid. AI may seem autonomous, intelligent, and revolutionary, but the reality is that its foundation rests on the backs of human beings who remain largely invisible. In the next part of this series, we will explore their lives in more depth, their routines, their challenges, their environments, and the personal stories that reveal the hidden human cost behind the AI revolution. Because understanding AI means understanding the people who make it possible, the ghost workers who teach machines how to see, think, and act, often for mere cents per hour. Ghost Workers of AI Part 2: The Lives Behind the Screens. In the previous part, we uncovered the invisible workforce that powers artificial intelligence. We saw how their labor shapes the intelligence we so often take for granted. But who are these ghost workers? What does a day in their lives look like? And what is the cost of feeding the machines that seem so powerful, so autonomous, yet are entirely dependent on them? Most ghost workers are ordinary people living in extraordinary circumstances. They are parents, siblings, students, or caretakers. Their lives are not defined by technology, but by necessity. They wake up each morning knowing that they must spend hours in front of a screen, performing tasks that demand precision, speed, and attention. For many, this is not a choice, but a requirement for survival. The wages, though meager, are often the only income they have to support themselves and their families. Their workspaces are often small, cramped, and shared. Some work from home, in a single room with little privacy. Others sit in crowded internet cafes, surrounded by dozens of others performing the same tasks. The hum of computers, the constant clicking of keyboards, the relentless notifications, these become the background of their lives. There is little variation, little escape. Each day blends into the next, defined by screens and tasks, by labels, annotations, and corrections. The work itself is mentally exhausting. Tasks that seem simple on the surface can be deceptively complex. A single misclassification of an image, a misinterpretation of text, or a missed nuance in a video can affect the way an AI interprets information for thousands or even millions of users. Workers must constantly maintain focus, analyzing each piece of data with accuracy and consistency. This mental strain builds over time, and fatigue is constant. Yet, the work never truly ends, new tasks arrive continuously. Deadlines loom, and wages depend on output. Many ghost workers are exposed to content that no one should have to see. They are tasked with reviewing violent images, explicit videos, and offensive material. They are the silent gatekeepers, deciding what is appropriate and what is not. And in doing so, they carry the emotional weight of humanity's darkest corners. Exposure to such content can cause anxiety, depression, and trauma. Yet support is minimal, recognition is absent, and their labor is often undervalued. The emotional toll is profound, yet invisible. Despite these challenges, ghost workers often work long hours to make ends meet. They may rise before sunrise and continue late into the night, taking short breaks when possible. They often juggle multiple platforms or projects, moving from one task to another to maximize income. The pace is relentless. There is little room for rest, little room for error, and almost no opportunity for advancement. And yet, they continue, because without this work, their families would go hungry, their bills would go unpaid, their lives would become untenable. For many, the work is isolating. While they labor to train systems that will serve millions of people around the world, they remain disconnected from the users who benefit from their efforts. There is little interaction with supervisors or teams. Feedback is often minimal, and recognition is nearly non-existent. Their work is essential, yet invisible. They are ghosts in every sense, present, performing, but unseen. Technology promises connection, efficiency, and empowerment. But for ghost workers, it is a double-edged sword. The platforms that allow them to work remotely also trap them in cycles of low pay, repetitive tasks, and isolation. They are connected to the digital world, yet disconnected from its rewards. Their labor builds systems that shape global commerce, entertainment, communication, and more, but they rarely reap the benefits of what they create. And yet, there is resilience. Many ghost workers continue not because of ambition or desire for recognition, but because they persevere. They adapt. They learn strategies to maintain focus, to cope with stress, to survive the mental toll of their work. They form informal networks, online communities where they share tips, vent frustrations, and seek support. It is a human response to a system that otherwise treats them as invisible cogs. We often marvel at artificial intelligence, praising its capabilities, its creativity, its intelligence. But each achievement is inseparable from the lives of the people who made it possible. The intelligence is human at its core. The creativity, the judgment, the nuance, these come from thousands of unseen hands, minds, and hearts. AI is only as capable as the workers who teach it, who train it, who guide it through the complexities of human experience. And this is the stark reality: while AI becomes more sophisticated, ghost workers remain on the margins. They face economic instability, long hours, psychological strain, and little recognition. The labor that powers AI is undervalued, hidden, and often taken for granted. And yet, without it, the systems that now dominate our lives would cease to function. Ghost workers are not just supporting AI. They are defining it. In the next part of this series, we will examine the economics of AI labor, how these invisible workers are compensated, the structures that keep them underpaid, and the global systems that exploit their labor while presenting technology as autonomous, revolutionary, and independent. The story of AI is a story of human labor, and to understand it, we must confront the realities of those who make it possible. Ghost Workers of AI Part 3: The Ethics of Invisible Labor. In the first two parts of this series, we discovered the hidden workforce that powers artificial intelligence, and we walked through the daily lives of the ghost workers who teach machines how to see, think, and act. We saw how essential they are to the functioning of AI, and yet how invisible they remain. But there is a deeper, more troubling story to tell, a story about exploitation, ethics, and the human cost of progress. Artificial intelligence is often presented as a marvel, a breakthrough, a technology that is independent and capable of extraordinary feats. It is praised for its speed, accuracy, and efficiency. It is described as a self-sufficient intelligence that can learn and adapt without human oversight. And yet, behind this illusion of autonomy lies a global labor force that is exploited in ways few people understand. The economic structures that underpin AI labor are designed to extract maximum productivity for minimum cost. Ghost workers are often paid per task or per hour at rates that are a fraction of what would be considered fair compensation in wealthier countries. Sometimes, this means earning mere cents for hours of intensive, meticulous work. It is an economic system that thrives on inequality, taking advantage of global disparities in wages and living standards. This exploitation is not accidental. It is structural. It relies on the invisibility of the workers, the detachment between the people who use AI and the people who create it, and the public's perception that machines are intelligent on their own. Because ghost workers are hidden from view, because they are uncredited and unacknowledged, their labor can be undervalued without public scrutiny. The ethical responsibility of those who benefit from AI is often ignored, leaving workers vulnerable to poor wages, poor conditions, and poor treatment. The exploitation extends beyond economics. It is psychological, emotional, and social. Ghost workers are exposed to content that can be harmful or traumatic. They must make split-second judgments about sensitive or dangerous material. And yet, support systems are often non-existent. There is little recognition of the mental toll their work takes, no counseling, no compensation for the emotional strain. They labor in isolation, performing the human work that machines cannot do, and they do so at great personal cost. We are confronted with a profound ethical question: is it justifiable to build a technological revolution on the suffering and invisibility of human beings? To create systems that will touch millions, while the people who make them possible live in precarious conditions, working long hours for little pay, with minimal protection or acknowledgement? The answer should not be complex. Exploitation, even if masked by technology, is exploitation nonetheless. And yet, this exploitation is normalized. In the pursuit of efficiency, speed, and profit, the human cost is overlooked. Companies present AI as an autonomous marvel, while the labor force behind it remains largely anonymous. The public marvels at the intelligence of machines, but few ask about the humans whose work makes that intelligence possible. Ghost workers are treated as replaceable, as invisible cogs in a system that is celebrated as revolutionary. And the system continues, feeding itself while disregarding the people who feed it. Ethics in AI is often framed in terms of bias, fairness, and decision-making. But the human labor that trains AI is a fundamental ethical concern that is too often ignored. The choices made in labeling, moderating, and annotating data are themselves ethical decisions. Workers make judgments about what is acceptable, what is harmful, and what is true. Yet their labor is undervalued, and their voices are excluded from conversations about the ethical use of AI. The people shaping AI ethics are invisible, even as they enforce the very standards that AI is celebrated for upholding. This creates a paradox. AI systems are designed to enforce rules, detect harm, and make judgments. And yet, the humans enforcing these same rules in the creation of AI are often left vulnerable, underpaid, and unprotected. The very people who teach AI about morality, context, and human behavior are the ones most at risk from the conditions of their labor. They bear the cost of the system, while AI is celebrated as impartial, ethical, and objective. The ethical questions do not end there. Ghost workers often operate in a globalized labor market where their work is commodified. The human effort that goes into training AI is stripped of context and value, reduced to a series of tasks that can be outsourced and scaled. Their expertise, judgment, and even emotional resilience are treated as replaceable resources. And yet, every task they perform contributes to systems that generate enormous wealth for others. The wealth gap is staggering, and the ethical implications profound. There is also a societal impact to consider. The invisibility of ghost workers reinforces a narrative that technology is autonomous, impersonal, and self-sufficient. This perception obscures the human labor that underpins AI, hiding the realities of global inequality, exploitation, and labor injustice. The story of AI is often told as a story of machines and innovation, but it is equally, if not more, a story of human labor and sacrifice. Ignoring that story is an ethical failure in itself. And yet, despite the exploitation, ghost workers continue to work. They persevere because they must, because they have few alternatives, because survival depends on it. Their resilience is remarkable, their patience immense, and their contribution to AI unparalleled. Without them, the systems we rely on would collapse. But the paradox remains. The very people who make AI intelligent are often treated as disposable. Their work is essential, but their lives are marginalized. In understanding AI, we cannot separate the technology from the labor that sustains it. Ethics in AI must include the treatment, compensation, and visibility of ghost workers. Until we confront these realities, the promise of AI will always come at a hidden human cost. Recognizing this cost is not just an act of fairness. It is a moral imperative. In the next part of this series, we will explore the global systems that perpetuate this labor. We will examine the platforms, contracts, and economic pressures that create the conditions for exploitation. And we will see how the invisible workforce of AI is not an accident, but a consequence of the way technology, labor, and global inequality intersect. The story of ghost workers is a story of humanity, and understanding it requires facing the uncomfortable truths of a system that celebrates machines while neglecting the people who make them possible. Ghost Workers of AI Part 4: The Economics of Invisible Labor. In the previous part, we confronted the ethical realities of AI labor. We saw how ghost workers are exploited, undervalued, and made invisible in a system that depends entirely on their labor. But to truly understand the story, we must look deeper into the economic systems, global inequalities, and market pressures that make this exploitation possible. The economics of AI labor are as invisible as the workers themselves, yet they shape the lives of millions. Ghost workers are part of a globalized labor market, one where their value is determined not by skill, effort, or necessity, but by geography and access to opportunity. In wealthier countries, labor laws, minimum wage protections, and social safety nets exist, ensuring workers are compensated fairly. But in many regions where ghost workers are concentrated, wages are low, unemployment is high, and protections are minimal. This creates a system where human labor can be purchased at rates that would be unimaginable elsewhere, a few cents per task, a few dollars per day, sometimes less. And it is this disparity that allows AI systems to be trained at scale, cheaply, and efficiently. The structure of AI labor platforms reinforces this inequality. Workers are often classified as independent contractors rather than employees, which strips them of basic protections. They are responsible for their own taxes, health care, and equipment. There is no guaranteed income, no sick leave, no retirement benefits. Every hour they work, every task they complete, comes at personal risk and cost. And yet, the platforms that employ them profit enormously. The labor is essential, but the compensation is not proportional to the value created. Consider the scale of this system. Thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of ghost workers may contribute to a single AI model. Each annotation, each correction, each piece of data they handle feeds into a system that will be used millions of times. Yet the total payment to these workers represents a tiny fraction of the revenue generated by the AI. The human cost is immense, but the economic reward is concentrated elsewhere, in the hands of those who own the technology, the infrastructure, and the platforms. This imbalance is reinforced by the way tasks are distributed. Workers are often paid per task, with performance measured in speed and accuracy. They are incentivized to work faster, sacrificing rest, well-being, and sometimes even accuracy. Quality control systems exist, but they are often automated, and mistakes can result in reduced pay or dismissal. In this system, efficiency is rewarded, humanity is not. The very design of the economic system encourages exploitation, normalizes precarious work, and treats workers as replaceable parts in a machine. And the impact is not only financial. The wage disparity creates social consequences, too. Many ghost workers support entire families on meager incomes. They must balance multiple jobs, navigate unstable employment, and endure long hours in isolation. Their labor fuels a global industry, yet their own access to education, healthcare, and social mobility remains limited. It is a stark illustration of how technology, economics, and inequality intersect. The profits of AI are global, but the burdens are local, concentrated among the most vulnerable. The economic model also exploits the perception of AI as autonomous. Because machines appear to function independently, the labor that sustains them is invisible, and few question the fairness of its compensation. The public marvels at AI's capabilities, yet rarely considers the millions of hours of human work required to achieve them. In a sense, the system relies on ignorance, not just of the workers themselves, but of the societies that benefit from AI's output. Contracts and platform rules reinforce this invisibility. Workers often agree to terms that limit accountability and transparency. They are not allowed to share their work publicly, discuss pay, or organize collectively. Many platforms operate globally, meaning labor laws are inconsistent, weak, or unenforced. This ensures that wages remain low, conditions remain precarious, and the workforce remains invisible and powerless. The structure is efficient for corporations, but it is exploitative for the people who make AI possible. And yet, ghost workers continue. They persevere not because the system is fair, but because the alternative is poverty, unemployment, or social exclusion. They navigate economic uncertainty, perform tasks under immense pressure, and endure conditions that would be considered unacceptable in most other industries. Their resilience is remarkable, but it also exposes the deep inequities at the heart of the global AI economy. To fully grasp the scale of this system, consider this: AI technology is generating billions of dollars in value, yet the individuals who make that technology functional earn a tiny fraction of what they produce. They are essential contributors to the digital economy, yet they are excluded from its rewards. Their work creates value for others, but the benefits are not shared. This is not a flaw in technology, it is a feature of the economic model that drives it. Understanding the economics of ghost work challenges our assumptions about AI. We often think of machines as autonomous, intelligent, and self-sufficient. We marvel at their efficiency and speed, their capacity to learn and adapt. But every byte of data, every judgment, every correction relies on human labor, labor that is undervalued, underpaid, and often invisible. The wealth of AI is built on the toil of people who remain largely excluded from its rewards. And that, perhaps, is the most shocking truth of all. In the next part of this series, we will explore the psychological toll of this labor. We will examine the hidden mental and emotional burdens ghost workers bear as they teach machines about humanity, yet often experience little recognition, support, or relief. The story of AI is not only a story of economics and exploitation, it is a story of human resilience, suffering, and endurance. Ghost Workers of AI Part 5: The Hidden Toll on Mind and Spirit. So far in this documentary, we have explored who ghost workers are, the conditions in which they labor, the ethical questions their work raises, and the economic systems that exploit them. But there is another layer, perhaps the most human and most troubling, the psychological and emotional toll of their work. To truly understand artificial intelligence, we must understand the minds and hearts of the people who train it. Ghost workers spend long hours in front of screens, performing tasks that require intense concentration, precision, and judgment. They are often isolated, working alone in small rooms, or in crowded spaces where privacy is minimal. Their work is repetitive, exacting, and mentally exhausting. Every day, they are required to maintain focus for hours at a time, knowing that mistakes could reduce their pay or result in dismissal. The cognitive load is enormous. Attention must be constant, fatigue cannot be fully acknowledged, and pressure is relentless. But it is not only the repetition and concentration that take a toll. Ghost workers are frequently exposed to content that is disturbing, violent, or explicit. They may have to review graphic images, violent videos, hateful messages, or harmful content. They are forced to make decisions about what is appropriate, what is harmful, what must be flagged, and what can be left unchecked. And while these judgments seem routine, the mental burden is profound. prolonged exposure to such material can lead to anxiety, depression, nightmares, and emotional numbing. Imagine sitting in a small room day after day, being asked to evaluate scenes of violence or cruelty. Imagine being responsible for determining what is acceptable and what is not, knowing that your work directly shapes how an AI perceives the world, yet having no support, no acknowledgement, no human interaction to share the burden. This is the reality for many ghost workers. Their labor is essential to technology that reaches millions, yet the cost is paid silently, inside their own minds. The mental strain extends beyond exposure to disturbing content. The nature of the work itself can erode a person's sense of purpose and self-worth. Tasks are often monotonous, fragmented, and devoid of meaningful feedback. Workers are told what to do, how fast to do it, and how precisely to label or correct data. Their input is treated as interchangeable, their judgment undervalued, their expertise ignored. The work can feel mechanical, isolating, and demoralizing, leaving many workers to question their own value in a system that celebrates machines, not humans. And yet, ghost workers continue. They endure. Why? Because survival demands it. Because alternatives may be scarce or non-existent. Because the wages, however small, are critical to supporting themselves and their families. This endurance is both remarkable and tragic. It is a human testament to resilience, but it is also evidence of a system that takes advantage of necessity, that thrives on the willingness of individuals to endure hardship without complaint or recognition. The psychological toll is compounded by social isolation. Many ghost workers perform their tasks alone, in remote locations, with little opportunity for interaction or community. They cannot discuss their work freely, as contracts often restrict communication or disclosure. Their labor is essential to a global system, yet they are cut off from the very society that benefits from it. This isolation magnifies stress, anxiety, and emotional fatigue. It is a subtle, pervasive weight that presses on every aspect of their lives. Another hidden burden is moral stress. Ghost workers often encounter situations where they must make ethical judgments, yet the systems they support provide little guidance or support. Deciding what content is harmful, offensive, or dangerous can create inner conflict, particularly when cultural or contextual nuances are complex. Mistakes, or even perceived mistakes, may have consequences in pay or evaluation. Workers are left to navigate ethical ambiguity largely on their own, and the psychological consequences can linger long after the workday ends. Sleep, health, and personal life are often sacrificed. Long hours, irregular schedules, and the mental toll of content moderation and annotation disrupt normal routines. Many workers report difficulties sleeping, heightened anxiety, and strained relationships with family or friends. The work consumes not only time but also energy, emotion, and peace of mind. It is invisible labor with visible consequences that rarely enter public discussion when we marvel at AI's capabilities. The tragedy is that ghost workers are teaching machines about humanity while often being denied the recognition, respect, and support that their own humanity demands. They instruct systems on ethics, context, emotion, and nuance, yet their own emotional needs are overlooked. They labor to make machines appear intelligent, ethical, and unbiased, while being subjected to stress, trauma, and isolation. Their minds bear the weight of work that is both essential and largely invisible. And still, despite the psychological strain, many ghost workers develop coping mechanisms. They form informal networks online, sharing experiences, venting frustrations, and offering support. They learn to segment their work from their personal lives, to emotionally distance themselves from disturbing content, and to survive in a system that does not prioritize their well-being. This resilience is extraordinary, but it is also a testament to how the system relies on human adaptability rather than humane treatment. This hidden toll forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. AI is often framed as a neutral, autonomous, and objective force. But the humans who train, moderate, and correct these systems are neither neutral nor objective in the mechanical sense. They are human, emotional, ethical beings. And the system, as it stands, does not fully protect their emotional health, does not adequately compensate for the psychological strain, and does not give them the recognition they deserve. Understanding AI means understanding these human costs. The brilliance of technology, the intelligence of machines, the efficiency of automation, all are built on human minds that are taxed, stretched, and sometimes broken. The emotional and psychological burden of ghost work is hidden, silent, and often unacknowledged. But it is real, pervasive, and central to the story of AI. In the next part of this series, we will examine the societal consequences of this invisible labor. We will explore how ghost work impacts families, communities, and social structures in the regions where it is concentrated. We will reveal how the human cost of AI reverberates far beyond individual workers, affecting society in ways that are rarely discussed but profoundly important. Ghost Workers of AI Part 6: The Ripple Effect on Society. In the previous parts of this series, we explored who ghost workers are, the conditions they endure, the ethical and economic dimensions of their labor, and the psychological toll it takes. But their work does not exist in isolation. It reverberates beyond the screen, shaping families, communities, and even entire societies. To understand artificial intelligence, we must also understand the social consequences of the invisible labor that sustains it. For many ghost workers, their labor is essential to family survival. A single worker may support multiple family members on wages that, while low, are the difference between subsistence and poverty. This dependence creates pressure, stress, and responsibility that extend far beyond the individual. Every task completed, every image labeled, every annotation made is tied to the livelihoods of others. The stakes are deeply personal. Children of ghost workers often grow up seeing their parents or older siblings spend hours in front of a screen, eyes fixed on a distant world of digital content. The family dynamic is shaped by invisible labor. Parents may be physically present but emotionally absent, absorbed in work that the rest of the world barely acknowledges. This creates a tension between providing for the family and maintaining emotional connection, and it can affect relationships, child development, and household stability. Communities are also impacted. In regions where ghost work is concentrated, it becomes a major source of employment, yet the work is largely precarious and informal. Local economies may depend on income from these digital tasks, but the earnings are often too low to generate long-term economic growth. Housing, healthcare, education, and social mobility remain constrained. Ghost work injects money into communities, yes, but it does not always translate into sustainable development. The labor is vital, yet fragile. There is also a generational impact. Young people entering the workforce may view ghost work as one of the few viable options in a globalized, competitive economy. It is accessible, flexible, and digitally connected, yet it rarely provides a pathway to long-term skills, career advancement, or upward mobility. In essence, entire generations may become tethered to low-wage, invisible work, contributing to global technological progress while remaining socially and economically marginalized. The social consequences extend to perception and aspiration. Ghost work reinforces the idea that technology is independent, objective, and detached from human labor. Communities see AI's products, automated systems, intelligent responses, advanced algorithms, and marvel at them. But few see the human effort that made it possible. This invisibility shapes expectations, cultural narratives, and aspirations. People admire the technology, but the labor behind it remains undervalued and uncelebrated. The human contribution is erased from the story, leaving communities with the illusion of automation rather than the reality of collective effort. There are also subtle but pervasive consequences on mental health and social cohesion. Ghost workers often work in isolation, reducing time spent with neighbors, friends, and social networks. Families may experience tension due to long work hours and emotional fatigue. Community engagement may diminish, and social bonds can weaken. The labor sustains global technological systems, yet it can inadvertently undermine local social structures. The cost of AI is not only psychological for the individual worker but also social for the broader community. Yet, there is resilience. Despite these pressures, communities adapt. Informal networks develop, support systems emerge, and people find ways to share knowledge, advice, and coping strategies. Online forums, chat groups, and social media become spaces for connection, solidarity, and mutual support. Workers share their struggles, tips for efficiency, and methods for coping with stress. In this way, the ghost worker community becomes both a lifeline and a support system, bridging isolation with solidarity. The societal impact of ghost work also raises questions about global inequality. The benefits of AI, from predictive algorithms to automation and machine learning, flow primarily to wealthier nations and corporations. Meanwhile, the labor that enables this technology is concentrated in lower-income countries. The flow of wealth is largely unidirectional. Human labor is exported virtually, yet the profits remain concentrated elsewhere. Ghost workers, their families, and their communities receive a fraction of the economic benefits, creating a stark and persistent inequality. In short, ghost work is not only a story of individual labor, it is a story of social systems, family dynamics, and global inequities. The work of training AI touches lives far beyond the individual worker, influencing families, shaping communities, and reinforcing systemic disparities. The invisible labor behind technology is inseparable from the social structures in which it occurs. Every task completed, every annotation made, every hour spent in front of a screen contributes not only to AI systems but also to the fabric of society itself, for better and, often, for worse. In the next part of this series, we will explore the future of ghost work, how AI may change, what the labor force might face as technology advances, and whether the human cost of AI will be recognized, compensated, or reduced. The question we must ask is not just how AI will evolve, but how the lives of those who sustain it will evolve, and whether they will continue to be invisible, undervalued, and exploited. Ghost Workers of AI Part 7: The Future of Invisible Labor. Throughout this series, we have explored who ghost workers are, the conditions in which they labor, the ethical dilemmas they face, the economic systems that exploit them, the psychological toll of their work, and the societal ripple effects. But now, we must look forward. What does the future hold for ghost workers? How will the evolution of AI itself reshape the lives of the very people who have made it possible? Artificial intelligence is advancing at an unprecedented pace. Models are becoming larger, faster, and more capable. Machines are increasingly able to generate text, images, and even perform complex tasks with minimal human oversight. On the surface, this may appear to reduce the reliance on human labor. It may seem that ghost workers are being replaced, that the invisible hands guiding AI will no longer be needed. But the reality is far more complex and far more troubling. As AI systems become more sophisticated, the demand for ghost workers does not necessarily decrease, it changes. Rather than performing routine tasks, workers are now needed to fine-tune systems, evaluate outputs, correct errors in subtle ways, and manage increasingly complex datasets. Machines may automate the obvious, but humans are still required to teach nuance, cultural context, ethics, and judgment. In many cases, the labor becomes more cognitively demanding, even as wages and recognition remain low. This creates a paradox. Machines are increasingly powerful, yet they remain dependent on human labor. AI promises automation and efficiency, but the very sophistication of these systems requires human oversight at an even deeper level. Tasks may shift from repetitive annotation to complex judgment calls, yet the economic structures remain the same: low wages, precarious contracts, and little protection. Ghost workers may be asked to perform more advanced, mentally taxing work without corresponding increases in compensation or status. Global economic pressures exacerbate this situation. Companies seeking faster development and lower costs continue to outsource labor to regions where wages are low. Ghost workers remain essential to global AI infrastructure, yet the benefits of technological advancement continue to flow to wealthier nations and corporations. The labor force may become more skilled in response to system demands, but the fundamental inequities persist. Progress for AI does not automatically translate into progress for the people who sustain it. There is also the possibility of partial replacement by automation. Some tasks, particularly repetitive or rule-based ones, may eventually be performed by machines themselves. But history suggests that automation rarely eliminates the need for human labor entirely. Instead, it often shifts, restructures, or intensifies the work. New tasks emerge that require human judgment, cultural understanding, and ethical reasoning, precisely the skills that AI cannot inherently replicate. Ghost work may evolve, but it will not disappear. And even as AI systems promise greater efficiency, the human cost remains. Workers may be asked to manage multiple models, verify outputs in real time, or moderate content at ever-increasing speed. Cognitive load, stress, and psychological burden may rise, while economic conditions remain unchanged. The labor becomes more demanding, yet the structures that govern pay, protection, and recognition remain largely invisible and inequitable. Technology may advance, but human vulnerability persists. The future of AI labor is also intertwined with global inequality. Wealth generated by AI continues to concentrate among the owners of technology, while the labor required to create, maintain, and refine these systems remains undervalued. Ghost workers are essential to progress, yet they are excluded from its rewards. This raises profound questions about justice, fairness, and responsibility. Will the labor force that sustains AI ever share in the benefits of the systems they make possible? Or will their invisibility persist, even as machines become more intelligent and powerful? There is, however, a potential for change. Awareness is growing. Advocates, journalists, and researchers are documenting the lives of ghost workers, exposing the hidden costs of AI, and calling for fairer compensation, better protections, and recognition of human contribution. Technological advances could be paired with ethical reforms, ensuring that progress does not come at the expense of human well-being. But for this to happen, society must confront uncomfortable truths, that AI is not autonomous, that its intelligence depends on human labor, and that the current system exploits and marginalizes the very people who sustain it. The future of ghost work is uncertain. Machines may become faster, smarter, and more capable. Work may shift, evolve, and intensify. Economic and social pressures may persist or worsen. Yet one thing is clear: AI cannot exist without humans. Invisible labor is the foundation of every automated system, every prediction, every creative output. The question is whether that labor will continue to be hidden, undervalued, and exploited, or whether the world will finally recognize the human hands and minds that have made artificial intelligence possible. In the final part of this series, we will reflect on the human story behind AI in its entirety. We will consider the lives, struggles, and resilience of ghost workers. We will ask what responsibility society bears, what changes are possible, and what it truly means to build intelligent machines on the backs of invisible human labor. The story of AI is a story of humanity, and in the conclusion, we will confront that truth fully. Ghost Workers of AI, Part 8, The Human Story. We have traveled a long journey in this series. We began by uncovering the invisible workforce behind artificial intelligence, explored the daily lives of ghost workers, confronted the ethical and economic realities of their labor, examined the psychological toll, and reflected on the societal and global consequences. We have looked forward to the uncertain future of AI labor. And now, in this final part, we confront the human story in its entirety, the story that technology often obscures, but that remains central to understanding AI itself. Ghost workers are more than faceless laborers. They are human beings with hopes, fears, families, and dreams. They are teachers of machines, guides of algorithms, and silent contributors to a global technological revolution. Every action they take, every label, every annotation, every judgment, shapes the intelligence we celebrate in machines. And yet, their lives are too often overlooked, their contributions unacknowledged, their struggles invisible. The story of ghost workers is a story of resilience. It is a story of endurance under conditions that are demanding, isolating, and sometimes harmful. It is a story of people navigating global economic inequalities, performing essential work while receiving minimal recognition and pay. They adapt, they persevere, they continue, not because the system is fair, but because survival demands it. Their resilience is remarkable, yet it should not be taken for granted. It is also a story of injustice. The labor that powers artificial intelligence is undervalued and exploited. Economic systems, platform rules, and global inequalities combine to create conditions where human effort is purchased cheaply, mental and emotional burdens are ignored, and recognition is withheld. Ghost workers teach machines about humanity, yet they are denied the respect, protection, and compensation that their work deserves. This is not an accident, it is a consequence of the way AI has been structured and monetized. But it is a story that can change. Awareness is growing. More people are beginning to ask difficult questions. Who trains AI? Under what conditions? At what cost to human lives? And who benefits from this technology? By confronting these questions, society can begin to demand reforms, fair pay, mental health support, labor protections, and acknowledgement of the human work behind technology. The human story behind AI challenges the illusion of autonomy. Machines do not create themselves. Intelligence is not purely artificial. Every model, every output, every automated system is shaped by human hands, minds, and judgment. Recognizing this fact is not only an ethical imperative, it is a necessary step toward creating a technology ecosystem that values humanity as much as it values innovation. Ghost workers remind us that technology is not separate from humanity. It is an extension of our labor, our creativity, and our moral choices. The systems we celebrate as autonomous and revolutionary are, in reality, reflections of human effort, human judgment, and human resilience. To build a better future with AI, we must also build a future that values those who make it possible. The call for change is clear: recognize the labor, compensate it fairly, protect the workers, and acknowledge the emotional, cognitive, and social costs of their work. Treat ghost workers not as invisible cogs in a machine, but as human beings whose work sustains a global revolution. Their labor is essential. Their well-being matters. Their stories must be told. In the end, the story of artificial intelligence is inseparable from the story of the people who sustain it. Ghost workers are the hidden architects of our technological future, and their humanity must be acknowledged if we are to call our advancements truly intelligent. The technology we admire is a reflection of human labor. And the question that remains for all of us is, will we continue to celebrate the intelligence of machines while ignoring the lives of the humans who make it possible, or will we finally see them, hear them, and value them? Ghost workers are invisible no longer. Their story is part of ours. And understanding it is essential to creating a future where technology serves humanity rather than humanity serving technology.